Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Alex Swenson. I have here with me Joey Krzywonos from our staff as well, and we're excited today to be with you to talk about the Epiprytanis position, a job that I think gets overlooked at times and maybe a little misunderstood, for lack of a better term, across Teak Nation. What Joey and I want to do today is just talk with you all about some of the different roles and responsibilities of the Epiprytanis, share some best practices. If you are an Epiprytanis or you want to be an Epiprytanis, how can you take a job that at times does not have a lot of definition and really elevate it to be the important job that it should be within your officer corps. And then we'll share a little more about how you can continue to learn and grow in that position as well. So to start, I'm going to kick it over to Joey. He's going to talk through some of the roles and responsibilities, and then we'll work through it from there.
Thanks, Al. I appreciate it. Like Al said, I work on staff with him. I'm in our risk department. And the first thing I want to talk about a little bit with the duties and responsibilities of the Epiprytanis is you're the Prytanis' right-hand man. If he is absent, if he is not in chapter, you are the one who is held responsible for the chapter. I don't want that to sound daunting or scary, but the Epiprytanis, as Al said, is not a role to take lightly. On top of that, you are in charge of the committees, the chairs, and their budgets within the fraternity. You could have anything from 5 committees to 10 committees, with each of them having their chairman that is responsible for making sure that they are doing what they're supposed to, making sure that you perform your duties, to meet with them weekly, bi-weekly, to make sure that they're getting accomplished what you want them to accomplish. With appointing them. Obviously, the people you've appointed for a reason, because you trust them and they trust you. But just make sure you're keeping them current, making sure you're keeping them in the loop of what's going on, so they're not planning something or aiming for a deadline that is now changed and they're out of the loop. And just make sure that you have that all on lockdown. But that's a little bit of what I think is the roles and responsibilities. So Al, I will send it back over to you all.
Yeah, thank you. And like I said, there are some things that we think you can do to really elevate the job of Epiprytanis. A lot of times it's just viewed as kind of a stepping stone to the Prytanis position. Somebody who is maybe a freshman or sophomore who views themselves as a future Prytanis and wants that vice president position. And while that can be true at times, and I think that that's a valid option, I don't want to overlook the importance of the role. The Epiprytanis I like to think of as the chief operating officer, the COO of the chapter. The Prytanis is the CEO, the chief executive. He's the one who is the face guy. He's the one going to meetings with the school, the one meeting with alumni, keeping the train on the tracks. And when the university wants a nice picture for their Instagram page with a bunch of people sitting on a bench in the middle of campus and letters, the Prytanis is probably going to get that phone call. But the Epiprytanis, as the COO, is really the one in the background making sure that the work is getting done. This should be someone who is a doer, who's going to put the time, put the effort in, stay organized. Joey talked a little bit about committees, and he's going to talk a little more about that here in a minute. But as the chief operating officer, if you will, the day-to-day operations that take place within the committees and with the committee chairman, they really fall on the Epiprytanis. So don't think of this as a job that just gets to sit and not say anything in ritual, and then you get to be Prytanis in a year. Go into this position with some intentionality. Go in with a desire to make an impact on the operations of the chapter and make an impact on the overall health of your group. A couple other things that I want to touch on. Be comfortable with what the Prytanis does. Be comfortable with the job duties of the Prytanis, because if the Prytanis were to, get in some trouble or were to get sick or have to miss a couple meetings, it is your job to step in. So, have an understanding of how the president runs meetings, have an understanding of how he puts an agenda together. All of that, you want to make sure that you're almost shadowing the Prytanis at times, because you're the one who's going to be thrust into action if the situation calls for it. And then, the last thing is just understand what your obligations are to the university as well. I think at times a Prytanis can get a little overwhelmed with being the guy in charge of the chapter and might not have the relationship with the university, with the Greek Life office that he should. So once again, just understanding what that needs to look like and being able to step up and fill in if the situation calls for it, that's extremely important as well. And I know Joey has a few more things to add.
Yeah, thanks, Al. Just feeding off of what he talked about a little bit, I'm going to dive in a little bit deeper about those chairmen and those committees. And I know I talked a little bit about the budgeting, the deadlines, some of the expectations, but truly when you have an operating chapter and you are trying to maximize the potential, get the most for your dollars, you really need to make sure that your committees are staying within what their parameters are that you've given them. So if you've given the rush chairman $1,000 for fall rush and he goes and blows that full $1,000 because you wanted to have the sickest looking t-shirts on campus, odds of him being successful for the rest of recruitment or any other events are probably not significantly high. So that's why it is very important to have those meetings and making sure that he understands, while yes, he is the rush chairman, making sure that when he's coming to those meetings, those ideas are being heard so you know ahead of time what he plans to do so you can maybe curb some of what he wants to do into making it better for the whole chapter, not just, a singularity thought of it. Again, with deadlines, if you want t-shirt designs or you want the events or you want whatever it is from that committee by a certain date, make sure that they know, like, let's say it's May 1st, you don't want it, at midnight, the night of May 1st, you want it by 5 p.m. or whatever other time that you set, because if you just tell him, yeah, I need it on this day, and he doesn't get it to you till 6 o'clock, but you really needed it for noon for the school, the communication line there isn't as good as it should have been. And that just goes right into meeting expectations. Have clear expectations for them so they can have those clear expectations right back for you. So there's that trust that is built between the two of you. So he does, he does something that you didn't necessarily approve of and hangs you out to dry, and vice versa. So make sure those communication lines are open and those expectations are met so you can work cohesively and all around everyone is successful in doing this. Just because you appoint people to their chair positions of the committees doesn't mean that can't be changed. If they aren't living up to your expectations and you're just leaving them there because that's your best friend in the chapter and you don't want to upset him, that's not going to make for a successful chapter or committee, and it's not going to be all around very well seen by everybody else. So just keep that in mind as well. When you're talking about the chapter and its bylaws and things like that, this was one thing that I did not touch in the beginning, but is another really huge responsibility of the Epiprytanis is making sure that the bylaws are up to date and the wording of it stays current with the state of the chapter and the culture that is going on. Right now, you're in a swing of things every 3 to 5 years are going out of date because things are changing, times are changing, and it needs to stay updated with the culture. Make sure the rules reflect the goals and values of the chapter. If they don't, they need to be evaluated. Make sure you're going through them. If you need to make a committee that looks through the bylaws with you so you're not looking through 15 pages of bylaws by yourself, so be it. You can make that an ad hoc committee if you need to. But make sure that they stay up to date. Do they, like I said earlier, do they need to be rewritten or revised? They should be revised every year to 2 years to make sure, like I said, they are staying up to date with the culture of the chapter. Are there issues that could come about or ambiguities within the bylaws that are missing? It's not just looking through to make sure things need to be written, but are there additions that need to happen to the bylaws to make sure things stay up to date? There are campuses that are changing rules all the time, and you want to make sure that nothing is left to question when you are writing these bylaws so they make for the most successful chapter that you could possibly have. And lastly, evaluate what you're doing as being an Epiprytanis quarterly. You have 2 semesters of the position, depending on if your semesters, trimesters, or quarters. It could be 3 trimesters or 4 quarters, but make sure you're reviewing it every so often. like I said earlier, do you need to form an ad hoc committee, which is you realize down the road you need to put a group of people together to uh, accomplish something as a chapter that not everyone needs to be involved in on. Does each committee have the right amount of members? Is it led by the right person? So just keep those things in mind when you're reviewing yourself. Reach out to others if you need help. Do not be afraid to ask for help. That's one thing that I've learned, and it has been a great life lesson. It's not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of strength. So just keep those things in mind as you're rolling along. Like Al said earlier, you are very pertinent to the chapter. You are doing everything behind the scenes that is thought to be done by typically a singular person. So Al, on that, I'm going to throw it back to you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And one of the things you touched on there with bylaws, as it relates to qualities of a good Epiprytanis, it needs to be someone that can be pretty rigid at times and be kind of a parliamentarian. There's not a lot of exciting things about sitting down and working through chapter bylaws or a chapter constitution. So you need to be able to have that attention span to do so, and that attention to detail where you're not overlooking things and putting the chapter at risk. If a decision is made in a chapter meeting, or a decision is made by a chairman or even another officer that goes against the bylaws and the Constitution, either that is set forth by the chapter or by the international fraternity in our black book, you need to be able to step up and say something and make that change. And that leads right into a few other important qualities of an Epiprytanis. What are the things that you should be looking for if you're a current Epi and trying to find the heir apparent, or if you're a Prytanis or an alumnus who's trying to identify someone to fill that position? One of the biggest things is the ability and the willingness to hold other people accountable, the ability to make tough decisions. Joey talked about, if there's a chairman who's one of your best friends, but he's not getting the job done, you need to act in the best interest of the chapter, not in the best interest of your friendship. It's hard to replace people at times. It's hard to tell people that they're not doing a good job or that they need to be doing something different. But the Epiprytanis must be able to handle that, because it's so important to the operations of your group and the short-term success and the long-term success. So someone who's not afraid of that confrontation, who's not going to back down from making hard decisions, that I think is the most important thing with an Epi. Someone who's extremely organized. If you're monitoring 5, 6, 7 committees at the same time, have a system to do so, whether that's a binder, whether that's Google Docs, whether that's a Microsoft Word document. Have a system to monitor all your different committees, goals, tasks, budgets, as Joey mentioned, making sure that you're staying very well organized and not mixing up committees, not neglecting one committee because you don't feel that their work is as important as another one. Be organized so that you're staying on top of all of the work that you have to do and that is in front of you. You want to be someone who's responsible and mature and respected by the chapter. Again, if you're going to be making those tough decisions, if you're going to be overseeing committee work, you want people to respect you, and you want to be someone who the chairman and the other members of the committee look to as trusted and as always acting in the best interest of the fraternity. And then lastly, you want to have a strong sense of confidentiality. Be able to keep a secret, for lack of a better term. You're going to be sitting in on plenty of committee meetings. You're going to be sitting in on officer meetings, maybe meetings with the school, meetings with alumni, with the board, with the housing corp. All of those do fall under responsibilities of the Epiprytanis at times, and not all of that information needs to be made public or needs to be shared with everyone in the chapter. So be able to keep that sense of confidentiality and understand the responsibility that comes with being a part of some of those meetings where higher level information is shared. So those are a few things, again, hopefully you look for in an Epiprytanis. If you are an Epiprytanis and there's 1 or 2 things in there that you don't do, work on that. Put yourself in situations where you have to develop and improve and get better. It's certainly not too late for that, but don't neglect those things just because you might not think that they're as important, or you might not be as good at them. So again, hopefully that information is helpful, whether you're an Epiprytanis or whether you're looking to become one. And I'll kick it over to Joey for some final thoughts and some resources that you can utilize to help you be better at your job.
Absolutely. Thanks again, Al. With finalizing here, like Alex was talking about, with a couple more resources that we can provide if there's something that we might have not answered or you're looking for something in writing, you can always go to teak.org, and we have all of our officer transition guides listed on there, have been for a while, that we're always keeping up to date as best as possible, from Prytanis to Chryso to Epi. They're great resources. I know when I was a collegiate, those were referenced very heavily when we were trying to get things back on track, get position roles, stuff like that, along with the HQ staff. So always, please reference those guides and work your way through them. There's a lot of very, very valuable information there. If you need another resource, take a look at the Black Book. If you have issues with, you don't know what to do with your bylaws, or if you're not sure that things are missing, always reference the Black Book. There's always a copy also available on teak.org. So take a look at that. If you ever have any questions with it, please feel free to reach out. My contact information, along with Al's, is on teak.org/staff. So always feel free to send an email. I know my personal phone number is on there, because I know right now, with us not working in the office, I'm working from my mobile a lot more. So with those resources, those are some great things to reference. If you're also having trouble with your bylaws and you don't want to reference the international bylaws, reach out to other groups. I can't tell you how many times when we're starting colonies, they don't really exactly know what to put into bylaws, especially when they're a cold start. So reach out to other groups, get their thoughts on what their bylaws are, and it could spark some really good ideas that you may be missing in yours. With that is what I have for some extra resources. I appreciate you watching with us today. And as I said earlier, please always feel free to reach out. I will always happily answer any questions.
Absolutely. And just want to thank you as well, and encourage you to continue to look for resources, continue to get better in your position. You should be improving as you go along. You shouldn't be the same guy that the last day that you're at Prytanis as you were the first day. So hopefully this video's helped. Hopefully we've given you some good ideas to continue to develop. And same thing as Joey said, if you have questions, if you need anything, reach out to myself, reach out to our office. We want you to be the best version of yourself so that your chapter can be the best version of itself. Thank you all again. Hopefully we'll have a chance to talk to you soon, and enjoy the rest of your day.